How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Lifetime Angler. So, first, I'll apologize. It's been a while since I've had a video up. I think we're coming up on 2 weeks now. Anyway, we're getting back to it. Today, what I wanted to do, a lot of people target catfish in North America. It's one of the most targeted species. But with that comes 1,000 different ways to target them. And if you're newer into targeting catfish, or even if you've been doing it for a while, it can get real confusing. What rigs, what do you use, how do you do this, how do you do that? Today I'm going to take time, I'm going to go over what I use. One of the first things I do is I'm going to have some sort of a sinker slide and a little bump or a bead on there. And then I'm going to tie a snap swivel, not a barrel swivel, but a snap swivel onto my main line, and that pretty much lives there, y'all. But the other thing, people think you've got to have just tons and tons of equipment. Guys, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to show you real quick. I'll show you the singular tackle tray that I keep my catfish stuff in. No, I don't have a whole lot of it, but it's going to catch me catfish anywhere I go with whatever I want to use. So, I mean, you'll see I've got a variety of hooks kind of in there. Kind of starting out around that 3/0 range, going up to, there are a couple 8/0s in there. There's some 5/0s in there as well. Do have some bait holder style treble hooks in there. I've got some regular treble hooks. That's an assortment of 4 and 2. One thing I do recommend is separate your sizes. I don't know how those two sizes got combined, but that's a pain to find the one I want. Then you've got some weights that are there. I keep some simple peg floats there, some bobber stops, which really don't use those too much, but they're in there. A couple snap swivels, those sinker sliders, and then down in the bottom, any pre-tied leaders that I've got, I'll keep in there. And guys, really, you, aside from bait, a knife, and a way to transport your bait and knife, that's really all you need. I will come back. If I'm not using cut bait, if I'm not using live bait, fresh, bait that I got from the water source or that I've frozen and I'm taking to the water source, if I'm using a dough bait or something, right now, guys, these fiber nuggets, this is probably the simplest way of a pre-made bait I've found that still works. Works well, too. Heck, about a month ago, I was sitting on a dock and I was catching, they weren't big, they're little baby channel cats, but man, I was catching them left and right, left and right, left and right. About every minute or two after getting that hook in the water down off the edge of the dock, boom, I was bringing one up, wrestling the treble hook out of his mouth, tossing them back, taking a picture with a few of them, and, right back at it. It was great fun. Fishing for sand bass and walleye that night was slow, so those little channel cats were great entertainment. But getting into the actual riggings, the first thing, like I mentioned earlier, I tie this little sinker slide, then I've got the bobber stop, and then I've got the snap swivel. On these snap swivels, you want to make sure they're the kind with a little hook bend on the end of the snap. So that right there, I'm hoping I'm getting that'll focus for you. You want to make sure it has that. That's going to keep from, if you do get a large fish, this pulling out. The video just got choppy there. Sorry, I had to move the camera around. I forgot to get you a clip of the barrel swivel or snap swivel, and things got shaky for a bit, so I cut those bits out. Alright, so we've got our snap swivel. We got our sinker slide, we got our bump stop. From there, guys, I'll use a 2 ounce, a 1 ounce. I can put whatever sinker I want on to the sinker slide. Now there are cases if I'm using like a Santee Cooper style leader and I'm bank fishing. I don't want my weight necessarily on that slide because the Santee Cooper rig will sit there and continue to pull line up. I don't want that because give it a couple minutes and next thing you know, your little peg float on your Santee leader is sitting on the surface of the water. So what I'll do instead there is I'll actually connect the weight to the snap swivel along with the leader. So again, like I said, if I'm fishing a Santee Cooper from the bank, rather than put my weight on the sinker slider, there we go, sorry guys, I'll put it on that snap. And what that'll prevent is this peg float from pulling through and continuing to lift off. It'll sit just right there. The problem I have putting it on that, actually on the sinker slider if I'm fishing a Santee Cooper rig from the bank is every time the wind or the waves pull slack, more and more of that line comes through there, and before you know it, like I said, you're all the way at the top with your bait, and that's not where you want it. The whole idea of the Santee Cooper is to give you more control over that. I'll put a Santee Cooper leader on there. Now I'm fishing a Santee rig. If I want to, I can switch out. I can put just a snelled circle hook or J hook on there, just hook and leader. I can have a Carolina rig. I can put a regular circle hook, J hook, treble hook if I want to on, put my sinker on that slider, and I've got a Carolina rig ready to go there. And the other thing being able to switch that leader out does for me is I do use treble hooks in the same manner. I'll tie a leader up to one of those, hook them on that snap swivel, and a lot of times that's one of the ways I'll target smaller channel catfish. The other thing, y'all, I'm too cheap and lazy to purchase actual dragging weights. I say that. My budget won't allow me to buy dragging weights. There, I admitted it. I'm a broke redneck like the rest of us. So, instead what I'll do, if I want something like a dragging rig, I'll tie a leader to my weight before I put it there. And then I'll come in and have my rig, and not necessarily a Santee style rig, but that's what I grabbed here. But I can do that, and that's just going to keep, especially if I'm in a place with some little rocks or a lot of mud, silt, things like that. Fish some places that have just, a foot or so of vegetation sitting right on bottom, and I want to be right up above some of that vegetation. I don't want to be dragging my bait through it. I'll do that. If I'm drifting, I'll do that. That'll come up over a log real nice and easy. Not snagless. I say snagless. Someone's going to jump on here and talk about how that's going to hang up. Yes, it will hang up. Yes, you will break off. You will lose weights doing that. I use very cheap, inexpensive lead weights when I'm doing that. If you're fishing with some fancy weight that you can't stand to lose, I don't recommend that. But I fish with stuff that if I lose it, for the most part, I'm not too pissed off. Now, if there's a fish on it when I lose it, I'm frustrated, y'all. That's you lose a good fish, you lose a good fish. Anyway. We'll go into this. Guys, anytime I'm fishing with any of these, if I've got a hook on the other end, if that hook's big enough or not a treble hook, I'm going to be snelling that hook. And by big enough, I mean physically just big enough for my clumsy fingers to snell the hook. If for whatever reason I'm having troubles, I'll use a Palomar or a uni knot. I like to use a uni or a Palomar for this treble hooks. I don't even know, I've never attempted to snell a treble hook, but I don't like touching them any more than I have to, so tying a knot's easier than snelling it. Guys, you can vary this up from real light weights to heavy weights, from real small hooks to heavy hooks. I do something a little different with my leaders. A lot of people will run a stronger leader than what they will a main line. Y'all, my main line is normally 25 or 30 pound monofilament. My leader, it depends on the size of fish I'm after. Smaller fish, I'm going to drop down on that leader. Yes, I do break some off every now and then doing that. That's part of it. Bigger fish, I beef that up. For me, that leader is what I use to be specific to the fish I'm targeting. I'm not using that for any more abrasion resistance or stiffness to hold the bait up or out or anything like that. There's going to be plenty of folk that tell me that's completely wrong, but that is what has been working for me, and until I find something that works better, or I have just a buttload of money I can throw into fishing to where I can have a setup for each different size fish and this, that, the other, that's the way I'm going to do it. Guys, I hope this helps you out. I hope it kind of simplifies some of the confusion around rigging for catfish. If there's any of these rigs or when they're used or anything like that that you'd like to know more about, just put it in the comments down below. If this video was helpful, hit the subscribe button and the like button. I say the subscribe button because I do plan, especially with winter being here, more and more of these videos are going to be little tips and tricks like this. For those of you that voted in the poll a while back, I have not forgotten. Catfish won, so the next video of us out on the water, I am doing my best to make it a catfishing video. Went out a few weeks ago, first big major cold front, and fish weren't having it. So I sat out there miserable. Camera lens was fogging up, so it's kind of a good thing I wasn't catching nothing because I couldn't hardly record anyway. But hey, we're learning, we're moving on. I will get some catfish on film for y'all here shortly. Just don't ask me to define what shortly means. But until next time, y'all stay safe and tight lines.